Hi, my name's Cheryl Hammert, and I'm a certified yoga teacher, a longtime meditator, and I'm here to teach you a segment called Sit and Stay. Or you could call this Goldilocks and the Three Bears if you want. What this is about is finding some ease and stability in our seated postures for meditation and in the yoga classroom. I've been meditating since I was 11, practicing meditation since I was 11, doing yoga asana for about 20 years, and teaching yoga and meditation for the last decade. This segment is geared towards beginning meditators and beginning yoga students, and even advanced practitioners are still finding discomfort physically or mentally in their practice. So there's going to be a little something for everybody in this practice. According to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, one of the first lines in that book that describes what yoga is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. In Sanskrit, that means yoga is a cessation of the fluctuation of the thought waves of the mind. So a good portion of what we do is called yoga is not going through all the warrior poses and all the athletic standing on your head and all these different postures that we see all the time. Really the goal ultimately is to be able to open the body channels up for energy to flow freely so our minds can settle into some solid meditation. So that's the majority of what the Yoga Sutras are addressing is the meditative part of the practice. So asana also means to sit. Okay. When I first started meditating, I was 11 years old, and I didn't have a lot of problems with my body, but getting my mind to settle was more of an issue than my body. Younger people and children sit naturally on the floor, and people of different cultures also sit easier on the floor. So as a young person, my mind would chatter and swirl, and I just didn't have the patience for it, but I knew it's something that I really wanted to do. So I learned how to meditate laying on my back with guided meditation, and was able to find some inner stillness and peace that way. So starting laying on your back is fine, laying in bed is fine, sitting in a chair, couch, sitting up against a wall. There's so many different ways to meditate, but the best thing to do is to find some ease and stability wherever you're at in your life, no matter what your age or your physical proportions or disabilities, that you can find a place to meditate with ease and stability and comfort, so that the mind's not being distracted. As I got older, trying to meditate in the temples with the Buddhist monks, I would go and chant with them for hours, and it was totally elevating, and I so loved that very much. But the pins and needles in my legs and feet would go numb, were a major distraction from the beautiful practice that was being offered to me. So moving forward further along in my life, I took transcendental meditation instructions, and they had us sit in chairs. Everybody sit in chairs across the board. They were very professional at addressing Westerners where they're at, because we're not accustomed to sitting on the floor. So that's how I learned how to meditate really solidly in a chair. I was able to find more stability there and be able to focus more on the meditation practice itself. From there, I proceeded to the yoga classrooms, where I found my back bothered me. I had to sit up against a wall. I couldn't sit for very long. I tried all kinds of different postures. And then proceeding along into teacher training, taking different yoga teacher trainings, where you would sit on end for 3 and 4 days from sun up to sundown, and beyond and beyond. And so again, the body is distracting the mind and the spirit from where it needs to go in the practice. So if you've had a knee injury or recent hip surgery, low back problems, the list goes on. Even, you sprained your ankle in any number of injuries and disabilities. This segment really is for you. It's for the beginning yoga student. This segment is for people who are thinking about teacher training and need to find some ease and stability so they can focus on what's being offered them in the classroom as well. So, that being said, without further ado, let's begin by finding a comfortable seated position in your chair. If you have a chair, we're going to start there. And the first thing I like to do is to physically move myself halfway forward into my chair, and I'm going to turn so you can see me. So I'm not leaning back. I'm sitting about halfway forward so that I can stack the crown of my head over my tailbone and have a nice natural wave or curve of the spine. Sometimes you want to take a little bit of time and move the flesh away from the sits bones so that you're making contact with your chair and your sits bones. Your ankles should be right underneath your knees, so if you need to scooch your feet out until they form a right angle. All right? I'm going to lift the sternum, relax the diaphragm, soften the belly, and the shoulders come down and away from the ears. Lengthen, elongate the neck, chin comes in slightly, eyes are closed, gaze is up and in between the brow. And the palms are face up in the lap, or you can just have the back of the hands resting on top of the thighs. So this would be a comfortable seated position. Your spine is open for energy to flow. We don't want anything to be impeded for the subtle energy to flow in our practice. I've taught a lot of people who are under 5 feet tall and their little feet are dangling here. So one way to address that is you can grab a bolster and then simply have the feet resting on a bolster. Now you can see I'm just right in a chair because my knees are coming straight out from my hips. I get up here and now my knees are higher than my hips. So we want to keep the knees parallel or lower than the hips. And that doesn't matter if you're sitting in a chair and or on the floor. It's good. The same principles are going to apply. So that might be too far up. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You got a yoga blanket here. This is a bolster fold, so it's a little bit lower. Okay. I'm still grounding down through the earth with my feet so I can make full contact. So much like doing a sun salute, you're standing at the front of your mat, mountain pose, Tadasana. You might want to pick your feet up and spread the toes wide and send them back down so you're balancing on all 4 corners of the feet. If that's too much, again, you can just unfold the blanket and find just the right spot. Also, if you are sitting on a hard chair, I highly recommend that you use a blanket, and you can just simply pad the chair. Otherwise, your tailbone might get a little sore. And you can sit up this way too. But then again, my knees are coming down. My chest is lifted. You can see the curve in my back. Belly's soft, shoulders relaxed. Back of the neck is lengthened, chin is coming in slightly. Eyes are closed, gaze is up and in between the brow, breathing light and long through the nose. Okay, so that would be a seated posture. Even that was really hard for me at one point in time because I had a back injury and it took me years to get over that. And so I didn't have the core strength that I needed. So sometimes I would actually meditate leaning to the back of the chair, and that's okay. That's what it's there for your safety. And we don't want to have pain. We don't ever want to have to work through pain. We want to maybe a slight discomfort, but never pain. Okay, so that's sitting in a chair. So let's say you got a knee injury, And when I took my first teacher training, it was just such a big blow to my ego because I had a knee injury and I had to spend the first part of my teacher training in a chair. So that was really, that was an eye-opener for me, but it also taught me a lot of skills that I can share with a lot of my students about how to sit comfortably in a yoga classroom. The next level is to use a bolster, or maybe two, depending on you. And the best way to do this is, again, is Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and try and find what's right for you. I like to have either a blanket. You can have a blanket down so that the tops of your feet are contacting something soft. So some people like to meditate in this posture, sitting on your heels, tops of the feet are down. This is an effortless effort in this pose. This is a wonderful place to meditate. Natural alignment of the spine. I really don't have to think about much except for keeping my shoulders relaxed and down, lengthening the back of my neck, chin comes in slightly, eyes are closed. Hands can be in the lap, palms face up. Nice and easy, but after about 3 minutes in this posture, you might find that your feet are going to sleep or your knees are in total pain. First thing I would recommend you do in regards to the knees is spread the knees wider so that you have a more stable base. Okay, and that takes some of the stress off of the knees. Even that may be too much for your knees. So if you're a knee person, this would be a little more comfy. Okay, this is another way to get up higher and take some of the pressure off your feet. So immediately the pressure's off of my feet here. And it's a lot easier. We call this riding a horse. You can double up on these and get up even higher. Use 2 bolsters. There's no shame, all right? No judgment in the yoga room. Wherever you're at is just fine. Okay. So that's going to take, there's literally no pressure on my knees now. My back is totally aligned effortlessly. I don't have to even think about my spinal alignment here. All I need to do is from the cervical vertebrae, make sure that it's aligned. Tucking the chin in slightly, hands on top of the bolster, palms face up. Try it. You're going to really like this one. An intermediate one, or another way to bump up in this posture, is to just take another blanket. This makes it a little cushier too. Okay, so that's another way to sit. Okay. Maybe all you have is a yoga blanket. Maybe you don't have any bolsters at home. Yeah, I've got a couple yoga blankets. They sell these almost everywhere in all the drugstores now these days. Carry them. You could sit this way. That's pretty low. So you could have a couple blankets. Instead of bolsters, you just fold the blanket into a bolster fold and continue stacked up until you're where you need to be. I've never been fond of this one. I'll show you, but some people love it. Guys especially, and their hips are they're just different than ours. Take a block, and they just put this right underneath their sacrum, or under their tailbone, sorry. Sits bones on either side. There's a tendency, after you sit here for some time on a block, you can see that, I'll move my tails of my shirt so you can see I'm sitting on the block, for the butt to go a little numb or get a little tingly. So again, you can address that issue by placing a blanket over the block. And there you have it. Everything's nice and aligned, you're ready to go. Hands in the lap, palms face up, or you can have the back of the hands on top of the thighs, palms face up. Okay. Another one you see a lot in meditation halls is, and I don't have one, but they have these little wooden benches. But what I do have is some really stable blocks. So I call this building Stonehenge. So you're gonna have two blocks that are, just have them on the outside of your knees so you know that you're gonna be able to slip your legs through. And you need a really firm bolster, one that's not gonna bend, to put on top. Okay. So I'm gonna come around. Okay, this is too tall for me, but if you're about 6 feet tall, it'll probably be just right. You can have the blocks on a different edge. And then now you're sitting. No pressure on the knees. Okay? So that's Stonehenge. So those are all different postures for sitting in that way that I can think of right now. When your teacher asks you to sit in easy pose, again, if you're going to be sitting for a long time meditating, you want to have a blanket underneath you. I also have this, and I love this because I can wash it, and no animal had to die for it. It's merino. It's the wool from the underbelly of a sheep, so it's totally sustainable. The animal isn't harmed this way. So I like to sit on this, and you'll see yogis half lotus and full lotus. All right, and you see them sitting like this. This is an advanced pose. This would take a lot of practice to find comfort and stability in. You're going to sit here for an hour. Things are going to go to sleep at first. So most of us, and I need to change the cross of my legs, will come into what's called a half lotus. Okay? But again, you want to think about that your hips are higher than the knees. So the first thing that happens for most of us is we need to have a blanket and a bolster fold. And we're going to put that behind us and just sit on the edge of that. And immediately my knees come down towards the earth and my hips are just slightly higher than the knees. It doesn't have to be a great deal now, but it takes some pressure off the knees. Sitting in half lotus. This is way comfortable for me. I could be here for a long time. I just need to remember to occasionally change the cross of the legs. Maintaining some balance in this posture. Turn to the side so you can see what's going on. So half lotus. Here I am sitting in half lotus. And then I insert a blanket. So now my hips are higher than my knees. My knees are coming down towards the earth. All right, so if you need 2 blankets, then use 2 blankets. The other way to do this is just, instead of having half lotus, you can just have one leg in front of the other, sitting in easy pose. Whenever you cross the, well, I'll show you that posture next, because that's really what comes next. Whenever you cross bones and ankles underneath knees, then there's going to be pressure that puts things to sleep. So I try to avoid that. So one heel comes in towards the groin, and the other aligns in front. And again, knees come down towards the earth. If you're not able to get the knees lower than the hips, slide that blanket underneath the sits bones, and then they just naturally relax forward. So you can try that one. All right, so you're going to be in a meditation. You're going to be doing it for 62 minutes. You're doing it with a partner, and you don't want to break your eye gaze or your mudras or your mantras or what you've got going on. Maybe you're pushing hands back and forth with another person. That's a long time to sit. And a lot of places I go, they only provide enough chairs for the seniors, right? Most of the senior yogis I know can sit on the floor just fine. It's the people who just don't have the experience or hours in that will find that to be challenging. So what I have here is a blanket that's folded in half lengthwise. And I'm going to fold it in half again. Okay? And I'm going to lay it down on the floor. I don't know if you can see this, but I'll pick it up and do it up here where you can see. I'm going to take a corner and just start rolling it at an angle so it's not parallel to the edges. It's just really rolling it at an angle. So it becomes like a big burrito. The fringe is coming out one side, right? So to get some length out of it. Now I'm going to cross my legs at the calves and the shins, not at the ankles. I'm not going to cross them there. I'm going to draw the knees up, cross them at the ankles, take this blanket and insert them, and then let the knees fall. The tips of the blanket come all the way back along underneath the thigh. And you can stay here for a real long time. This is a really yummy spot to be. You are fully supported all the way from the knees all the way back. Okay. So I highly recommend trying that for a long meditative session if you're going to be called to do that. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see that again, crossing at the calves. I'm going to sit on a blanket to raise my hips, cross the legs at the calves, bring our burrito around, and then I just let the knees fall, and then I'm fully supported with the blanket coming all the way back towards the hips. Very stable. Probably my favorite meditative posture. I don't have any pressure on my feet or my ankles or my knees at all. Everything's padded up. All right, so that is really my favorite. I don't have a name for it, except for we use a burrito for it. This is really a nice thing to carry because it's a crescent-shaped pillow, and it's very much padded higher towards the back, and then comes down and pokes out underneath the hips. So I'll demonstrate sitting on that. It's a lot like sitting on a supported blanket, so it's going to give you a little more time on the floor without discomfort. So it's supporting me from my tailbone all the way down, about halfway down the thighs. So that's a real quick way to do it. Here's one that I find in a lot of Buddhist temples. You go in there and they got a big square mat and they got this round zafu right in the middle, and you're supposed to find some comfort with it. This one's got buckwheat holes in it, so it's never been my favorite. But it beats sitting on the floor, and I'm grateful that they do provide those. This is great because for the average person, it's going to help you lower your knees down and keep your hips elevated. Again, I'll just turn to the side on this one so you can see. So that's how you sit on one of these, but you can also straddle this one. So you have two positions. You're going to be there for an hour and a half at the Buddhist service on Sunday. Then you're going to have two positions so you can change. You don't have to be like a statue. You know, you're not a model. You're not a plastic doll. You're a real living human being. When you need to move the body, remove the distraction, and return again and again to the breath and the mantra or the meditation that you're working on. Okay, so I think one last one. Another way to support yourself is if you're sitting in a cross-legged position. Most people, their knees are way up here, especially Westerners. Their knees are way up here. They're not accustomed to sitting on the floor. In time, you know, your hips will open and your knees will relax in time. You know, baby steps will get you there. Don't be concerned. Don't worry about it. Just be where you're at. But if your knees are up there and you're in a yoga room and you got 2 blocks There you go. Instant support for the knees. You don't want to be constantly trying to hold on to these knees in the air because it's going to build tension and it's going to translate right into your meditation practice once again. So don't ever hesitate to use what we call props. Props are tools that help us get deeper into our practice, both physically, spiritually, and mentally. So ease up on yourself and grab all the props that your yoga room has and use those to support yourself in your practice. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll be happy to address those issues with you. I hope I was able to cover enough information to help you have more ease and more stability in your practice. Namaste.